And what would you say is the main goal with tonight's protest?
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing? About what? About Israel. Why are we protesting here?
Palestine will be free!
I wish I was more educated.
I'm not either.
Oh.
I came from Columbia. I was there up at Columbia, and we came down. They said NYU students needed our support, so I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was getting dangerous.
Wow. Clint didn't even teach his girlfriend what they're protesting for. Shame on you. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Radowski here of thebestpoliticalshow.com, and we are going to be live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developing right now, as there are some politicians that are literally plotting to throw Elon Musk in jail, as there's also a lot of protests all over the United States and top universities, as state troopers were just called into Texas, as there's a lot of people being arrested. There's also crackhead Barney. Lots of stuff to discuss. Kanye West doing some really weird projects. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more, all here for the next 2 hours. So make sure to share this broadcast with your friends and family members. You guys sharing it really does mean a lot, since, of course, YouTube has been on a really big totalitarian rampage recently. They deleted a 12-year-old video because we violated medical misinformation that happened 3 years ago. Yes, you heard that correctly. They're deleting a lot of our videos. They're hurting us in the algorithm. And the only way that this independent media organization is still here is because of you sharing these broadcasts with your friends, with your family members, as, of course, we also allow you guys to participate in the conversation. And one easy, clear way of doing that is by also signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com. And then by doing so, you get the ability to call in to the show and ask us whatever you want, unfiltered questions, in about an hour and a half from now. As, of course, members also get to partake in the nature hike that we are going to be doing this Sunday, 1 p.m. local time in Austin, Texas. Another way to participate in the conversation is, of course, through Super Chats, and we prefer you guys use Streamlabs. There's a link in the description right now that takes 3% of a service charge. YouTube takes 30%. Streamlabs 3%. Really does make a big difference, especially since now your super chat will actually be able to show up on screen while we, of course, conduct the conversation, and we will be doing our best to try to read as many of them as we can. We also have saveirishman.com, but we're just going to leave it at that. Check that out later on if you want some goofs and laughs. As, of course, joining us for this conversation is the one and only Jay Dyer. Jay, for the people who don't know you, who are you? How would you introduce yourself?
Jay Dyer. I do a lot of analysis of geopolitics, movies, pop culture. Written 4 books now, 2 on Hollywood, 2 on philosophy. I do a lot of lectures. I've done a lot of work with Richard Grove. Host the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show every Friday for the last 3 years. I'm also somewhat of an agitator, so-called comedian. We produce a lot of wild stuff. Just got back from hanging out with Sam Hyde.
He was supposed to be on the show, too. We would love to have him, but there was, I think, a problem with his schedule. But he was supposed to be on a couple weeks ago. But I appreciate your work. It's usually very insightful. You usually talk about a lot of stuff that is connecting the dots on bigger topics that a lot of people don't like to talk about. A lot of people usually like to talk about all the latest news. They don't like to go into the historical context of it. You do it in a brilliant way. So this is going to be a fascinating conversation, because when we move on to greener pastures and away from this platform, we'll be fully able to unleash some deeper knowledge that you definitely have a lot of. Ian Crossland, also in the house here. Good to see you.
You too, man. Jay, are these your books?
Some of these are. I could say these are mine, and then I'd be lying. Yes, I wrote the Whitney Webb book.
That would have been a good lie.
Whitney Webb book. No,
Whitney Webb, Ghostwriter confirmed.
These are my 2 here, and this is my.
I'm glad to see you again, man. I'm looking forward to talking about the past, or talking about integrating history with what the hell's going on right now.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Ian Crossland, co-host Timcast IRL, also actor, musician, tech guru. If you didn't know, check out Minds.com. I co-founded it. It's a great social network. And do you guys want us to scoot closer together? Just checking with the production team. Jay, maybe you can scoot over a little towards me.
There you go. That's
He's
perfect.
hitting on me
Get
now.
that frame nice and tight.
My wife's here, so
Yes.
Calm yourself,
In the
Ian,
house.
and your pork missile.
Rock and
We
roll.
all
I
heard
love the
stories.
meta. I love talking
We
about
all
the
heard
story
stories
behind
about
the
you.
story, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories, as of course.
Oh, I played tennis today.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I played tennis. I think I went a little too hard on my shoulder. I did so the shoulder shrugs with the 25-pounders, and then yesterday I was playing paddleball with Ariel Scarcella. Scarcella, is that how you pronounce her name?
Scarcella.
And then we played tennis today. It's a little balls to the wall with my right shoulder. So I'm learning.
That saying goes in many different ways. Since
Literally balls to the wall.
You're single and ready to mingle and having the time of your life
Talking about
here
paddleball,
in
Luke.
Miami, Florida. As of course, Clint is super busy with a lot of his girlfriends.
Yeah, man.
You didn't even teach that one what she's protesting for. You totally let her down, man.
In fairness, like she came from Columbia, so she was interested in like what was going on at that college. Now she's at NYU. You can't know the intrapolitics of all of these, Marxist revolutions. Anyways, Clint Russell, tantric sex coach and vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party of the United States of America, a la Javier Milei. Also the host of Liberty Lockdown, which you should absolutely subscribe to. And then you should also pick up your phone and go to your favorite podcatcher and subscribe to both The Best Political Show and Liberty Lockdown so that you never miss an episode. I also do Tower Gang, which you should not watch, but I'll be on it at 9/11 tonight.
We never knew that he was a boom boom coach.
Yeah, man.
Steph, I don't know how do you feel about that. You look a little bit more uncomfortable now sitting next to him.
I'm fine. I love Clint. This is Steph. We are Change, ready to push the buttons.
All right, let's get right into it. As there has been a lot of very interesting news coming from all around the United States regarding these protests that have been popping up at top universities all throughout the United States. Now, these protests predominantly are centered around a conflict happening right now inside of the Middle East, a conflict that we can't really even fully talk about here on this particular program, as Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House that sold this nation down the river, that literally passed almost $100 billion in weapon sales to foreign governments all around the world, pretty much putting a down payment on the future of conflict globally, came out to Columbia University and actually tried to address the crowd there as the faculty there is taking part in a lot of protests, sit-ins, and camp-ins that are very similar to Occupy Wall Street. Here's a small segment of the video coming from freedomnews.tv.
Make you suck! Make you suck! Make you suck! Make you suck! Make you suck!
They got that part right.
Hey. They're not wrong. As I'm kind of conflicted about these protests because automatically people are drawing the political lines here and they're saying they're bad, they're leftist, they have masks. But protesting Mike Johnson makes sense right now, and I agree with their overall assessment and their intellectual discourse when they, of course, proclaimed that Mike Johnson does indeed suck. So there's a lot of different things happening right now. There's some people being arrested, and I think this is kind of Occupy Wall Street all over again with a kind of overreaction from the right that automatically is calling all of these guys terrorists. They're not all terrorists. They're students. Some of them are woke. Some of them are wearing masks. Some of them do say a lot of kind of crazy stuff. Some of them don't even know what they're protesting. But this is something significant, and the more that the police and governments intervene here, the more the popular they will become. I don't know if you've been following this, Jay, what your assessment of this is, but it's a complicated situation. A lot of people want to see it as black and white, but I don't see it as black and white myself.
I have followed it some. Yeah, I think one thing I did was a long fourth hour of Lord Voldemort's show where I went into the history of the division of the Middle East by the British Empire. And a lot of people don't know that. They don't know the bigger picture. So they get really caught up in the radical side either way of the here and the now. So now that's all being politicized in terms of free speech, and they're trying to clamp down on free speech when this country is founded on that. Pretty sure that's one of our values, but nobody really very few people actually have the history of the British mandate, the division of the Middle East, part of the British imperial strategy.
You talking about Balfour Declaration?
All of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to skirt,
okay.
of
Yeah, we're here on YouTube here, Clint.
So
All right. Well, I didn't know.
But
I didn't
yeah.
know that was also not allowed.
I'm going to bring out
Well, I
the taser
don't-
before we get to 100K here.
Tasers.
All right. Sorry, we got to keep Clint in line here as
Sorry.
best as we can.
I don't know what's not allowed anymore.
There's a
And
new
we can't even talk about the platform that we go to, since there's even some data highlighting how your engagement literally gets cut off as soon as you mention an alternative platform that we should be going to but can't because it's down. We'll get into that a little bit, as of course there's also a lot of independent media organization suppression happening that's very, very intense right now. Sorry, Jay, continue on your thought.
You're not allowed to talk about what you're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
getting-
you don't know?
And then you also can't talk about what you can't talk about. What you can't. It's like tortoise.
I kind of take the thing like I'm not going to play those games. I just talk about it anyway, but I do it in a way that the admins just deal with it. I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem in 18 years of being on the internet of talking about this stuff. If you don't make value judgments on it and you're logical and almost autistically legit about the data, and then don't take sides, it seems like it's okay.
No, it's not. It's absolutely
but
not.
What's otherwise you just stay quiet until it all comes to an end? I mean,
No,
what's the
you
other option?
you use this platform as the battlefield that it is, and then you try to get as many recruits as you can, and you bring them over to your email list, to your website, to lookundfiltered.com, to another website that we can't mention, to another social media platform, and then you try to get the message out as best as you can, and you fight the wars where you can. So that's what we're left with, because otherwise we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot with how much we have already worked so hard when it came to the independent media that we have provided to this particular platform.
I agree with the point that you're making, though, Ian, that like we can still manage to talk about it. We just have to kind of be cryptic about it. I think that the issue, though, is, as you were saying, if you don't come down with a firm opinion, you'll probably be okay. But like, there's times where firm opinions are not just necessary, but like really matter in the moment. 2020 springs to mind. So I think that's the really nefarious part of the censorship, is that it's so chilling. It makes people afraid to tell the truth, and I just find that totally reprehensible.
It feels like these protests are like the explosion of the zit. And it's like, why was there a zit in the first place? This is what you're talking about, the history of the creation of the whole Middle East, this Middle Eastern conflict. So where were you exactly headed with
Well,
that?
so, you know, a lot of people don't know that HAMAS, you know, that's created by the existing nation state over there that has a history of being created as a controlled dialectic. Yeah, exactly. So people don't know that. I remember tweeting about that a while back when this first kicked off a few months ago, and we got a lot of traction from that because a lot of people didn't know that. And I was just actually pulling from mainline historical sites. You know, you get if you study history, a lot of this is in, you know, mainline history, but people don't know that. So they're just politicized into these radical positions. But the more that we know about managed dialectics, I think it makes a lot more sense.
It's very similar. It's very similar to how, like, if you were to read the New York Times, even in 2018, 19, they would be very honest about the corruption that exists within the Ukrainian government.
Exactly.
It
was listed like on a corruption index, like in the
right.
very top,
And then 2 years later or 3 years later, if you bring it up, then obviously you love Vladimir Putin. It's just so ridiculous.
No, and I think right now what's happening with the left, they're going after Donald Trump and they're making him kind of infamous. But now I think with this overreaction to these protests at these universities, the right is also making a lot of these protests a lot more infamous, a lot more prominent, and a lot more talked about than it would have been if it wasn't for people coming out automatically and saying very hyperbolic, sensationalistic statements about them. They're saying, these are all Hamas supporters. Well, I don't think they are. Yeah. There's one or two saying some weird, wild stuff. Okay, we can admit that. But I don't think overall people who want to stop a conflict in the Middle East shouldn't be equated with a larger terrorist organization. Rudy Giuliani's literally there being like, you're a terrorist. I don't think they are. They're expressing freedom of speech. They're organizing. This is very similar to Occupy Wall Street, and I was there day one. And I remember before anyone even got there, there was a mixed group. Some people on the left, some people on the right, some Ron Paulers, some anti-Fedders, some liberty-minded folks, some Tea Party folks, and everything was fine. We were there for a few days, and then came the police crackdown. And then when we had the police crackdown and had police officers brutalize protesters for walking on the street or walking on the sidewalk, I was there. Other independent media was there. We filmed this. The corporate media was ignoring this in the beginning, and then it went kind of viral on social media, and then this movement spread and grew. And this is exactly the kind of formula that's being copied right now, I believe, with this particular movement, as Texas State Police was just deployed to the university campuses here in Austin, Texas, at the university there. And you see them on horses, you see them in riot gear, and we are also getting reports that a bunch of people have also been arrested. Tim Pool on social media is saying that this is how the cult grows. Convince young default libs to protest, intentionally agitate so these people get caught up in arrests, then use the fear and anger of the arrests to draw them into your cult. And I think that's pretty much what is happening right now. And to me, the overreaction by the right is doing the same thing that the left is doing to Donald Trump. Convince me otherwise. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I completely agree. The way I view protests is like it's white blood cells. So when there's an infection in the nation, you will see the white blood cells come out. And this happened on that fateful January day for Donald Trump, and it's happening now amongst I'll grant that these people many of them are Marxist leaning, and I could not disagree with their political ideology more than I do, but this is a reaction to what I perceive to be a genuine injustice, and the fact that we are being robbed to fund it. I approach this from a true non-interventionist anti-war perspective. Not all of them do, but that doesn't change the fact that I think this is a net positive, that this is making the Democrats' job of continuing to fund this war much more challenging, because everywhere Joe Biden goes, he is met by these chants of Genocide Joe and things of that nature. I think that they are in scramble mode. They're totally panicked by it. I think it's a net positive, and the right-wingers that are calling for National Guard to be called in and stuff like that, I think that you're reprehensible, un-American, unconstitutional pieces of human garbage.
Well, I'm on social media right now, and I see a lot of people saying, "Welcome to Texas," as they're highlighting videos of people being arrested. I want to know what they're being arrested for. Are they just being suppressed because of their free speech? Are they actually violating some laws here? What's really going on? As, of course, automatically, when it comes to state authoritarian power, I'm kind of automatically on the side of saying, hey, I'd rather not have any of that. I'd rather have free speech. I'd rather have the ability of individuals to be able to express themselves. When we do have repressions of free speech, you do have a movement that is propping up here. As, of course, a lot of people were saying, we are going to have another summer of love, of mostly fiery but peaceful protest here in the United States right before the election, and it looks like these protests at these campuses are kicking it off. And I think our reaction here has to be principled, and always has to be standing behind freedom of speech, the freedom to assemble, as long as you're not violating or hurting anyone or destroying anyone's property. So far, what I'm seeing a lot of videos that a lot of people are ridiculing these people for. I see a lot of people ridiculing them for wearing masks. I think it is kind of ridiculous that a lot of them are wearing masks. I think some of them are doing it because of, maybe some kind of health concerns. I think other people are doing it because they don't want to be identified. There's videos of weird artistic kind of expressions like this unfolding during the protest there. There's other people making fun of them because they had kind of gourmet vegan food. And so far, I haven't seen, unless I'm wrong, these protesters hurting anyone. I've seen them deny access to someone from being able to walk somewhere, but I haven't seen them break anything. I haven't seen them destroy anything. I haven't seen them hurt anyone. As, of course, there's also this video footage coming from Harvard showing specifically a lot of these protesters storming on the grass and then literally setting up encampments and setting up places where they will, of course, try to have sit-ins. And again, sit-ins are something that has happened throughout the history of this country and have been an effective form of protesting. This is why Occupy Wall Street was so successful, mainly because people kind of came in, they set up camps, they set up these tents, and they said, you know what, we're not just going to come and go and protest. We're going to kind of stay here, and we're going to start some really interesting conversations and a dialogue in this country about the true economic inequalities that all of us have to deal with, that we're getting screwed over by the Democrats and the Republicans by. And that conversation, I think, was worth having. But then initially it was, after a few weeks, kind of hijacked by the far left. You were there, Ian. You saw it there. Are you paying attention to these protests? And do you see the similar parallels that I am?
I have not at all. But I paid attention to a little bit of these protests, in that I think it was Columbia said that they were going to start doing all their classes remote because the protests.
Yeah, they canceled all classes. They're doing remote classes until the end of the semester, at least, because there's people protesting and occupying their territory, and they keep extending the time that they're allowed to be there.
I think these colleges private. Is that private land? Because if it's private, they can throw anybody they want off the land. I don't know.
mean, it's tough because they're many of them are private colleges, but then the lion's share of their funding comes from state monopoly, loans to these kids. So it's like, I don't know.
That's similar with Zuccotti Park, where Occupy Wall Street. I was also at Occupy Wall Street. I got down there like week 2, and we were there for a few days, right before the police came and just ripped up all the tents. And when we were there, it was like Zuccotti, first of all, is like a publicly owned or privately owned but publicly funded park. So they have like rules, and so they weren't really able to shut it down on their own. Bank of America across the street, I think it was Bank of America, one of the banks was like, you know what? We do need to do a bunch of street construction right now. And they just started this loud ass construction to try and buzz off all the protesters. That wouldn't shake them. So my friend was like, tonight's going to be a really bad night. We should get out of here. So we left. And that was the night that the cops came and tossed it all.
Yeah, the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who doesn't like free speech on college campuses and passed very weird laws inside of Texas, just announced on social media, quote, arrest being made right now and will continue until the crowd disperses. These protesters belong in jail. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in Texas, period. Students joining in hate-filled anti-Semitic protest at any college or university in Texas should be expelled. Now, again, very aggressive, very hyperbolic, very sensationalistic kind of statement, as of course, there's Jewish people participating in these protests. Are you going to call them anti-Semitic too? And using that kind of term and language is a huge, gross generalization and an over-abuse of power that they have given themselves in order to stop any legitimate form of criticism. I don't like the war in the Middle East. I want it to stop. I don't like the war in Europe. I don't like the war that is brewing in Asia as well. Now, I'm a little bit more principled. These individuals aren't, but still, this statement by Greg Abbott is only going to make these protests that much more popular, that much more big, and that much more of a discussion piece, since a lot of people are saying this is a very incorrect statement to make here that is not fair.
Why do you hate Asians? Right? I mean, imagine applying that to the Asian, right? So if you don't want war there, you must hate Asians.
Yeah.
It's just silly.
This
it's
is
ridiculous.
This Semite thing's ridiculous, too. A Semite is a desert person. There's lots of Arab non-Israelis that are Semites. So, like, if they have a problem with the Israeli government, then that's what this protest is about. If it's the behavior of the government, it has nothing to do with someone's heritage, or it's this government doing this thing that's being protested at the moment.
Well, and the reason Abbott's coming out in this fashion is because he knows where his bread's buttered. He's got a very devout. I don't know if it's the evangelical strain of Christianity, but there's the dispensationalist, worldview that he knows that this is going to be popular amongst his base. And I think that this is totally reprehensible. You cannot run as a constitutional conservative and then call for, hate speech laws and for the, Texas National Guard or Texas police to come in and crack down on these.
I bet what's happening is he's in a panic, a bit of a panic because of the border crossings, and is probably like,
well, then
for
do
a good
something
God.
about that.
Well, he probably feels like maybe some of those people are on the campus right now. He doesn't know what's going on. Are we being infiltrated? Is this like a psyop? I've got to do something harsh to stop it right now. Maybe he's got that state of mind.
Well, if he had that state of mind, why isn't he going so hard in the paint on the border?
He's protecting people from political opinions on college campuses more than he's protecting the American border from illegal immigrants that are walking into it. And this is the footage. Let's play the footage here to get full context here, because there's a short clips, and it shows the state troopers full riot gear coming in, shoving random people. Again, you don't got to do any of this. Once you do this, you only empower these protesters. And again, I'm probably 95% not aligned with these protesters, but I still believe that they should have an ability and a right to protest peacefully as long as they're not hurting anyone. I haven't seen them hurt anyone, but I'm seeing these police officers walk in there and then start just shoving and pushing people all over the place.
That's where I'm at.
Here's the clip.
Let go!
Yeah, we see one lady just being shoved there, and again, she was just like standing there, and then the cop just comes up and hits her. You think that's going to help convince these people of anything? No, it's going to make them double down on their ideas, on their protests, on their ability to, of course, try to speak out against this. And then we have Greg Price on Twitter saying, quote, pro-Hamas idiots at UT Austin discover what happens when you try to pull a Columbia in Texas. Again, this is nothing to kind of be proud about, in my opinion. This is nothing that we should be standing behind. We should be standing for the right of individuals to freely assemble and to be able to express themselves. And that's clearly what a lot of people don't have a lot of scruples and principles on the right.
Well, Jay, I'll ask you this. I'll ask all you guys this. So the problem with like liberal societies that I've come to learn is that they're very open to infiltration. So like if there was a huge communist surge in here and they were like, hey, we're just exercising our free speech rights, right? Everyone, hey, I'm not touching you, that kind of stuff. Like at what point are the police justified in cracking down on protests?
Well, see, here's the thing about communists. Like they don't really become powerful unless they have the political apparatus and the monopoly on violence to implement their will. Now, the problem is that they have some of that. The Biden administration certainly functions within their worldview to some extent. So that's my concern. My concern is not the protests. I think it's a total misalignment in terms of like actionable power versus their demands. They may say wild stuff, but that doesn't change the fact that you can't put people in prison for saying wild things. Not in America.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people on the right are also making the argument right now saying that when the police were used against you, they were cheering it on, and therefore now we have to do the same thing. And I think that type of ideology is defeatist, and as Clint said, is wrong. And I absolutely agree. You shouldn't become the enemy that you're fighting. Jay, you had something to say?
Yeah, you had a great point about the evangelical end times fervor that's tied up into this because. Of course, Abbott in Texas, this is a huge hub of John Hagee's in Texas. He has a massive audience when it comes to evangelical Zionist sort of, deference there. And that was actually inculcated about 100 years ago through things like the Schofield Study Bible, which was promoted from Oxford University. Oxford still promotes and pushes that study Bible, which has infected the entire evangelical American landscape. That's how we got to this point where they sort of identify anything going on in the Middle East with Christianity. All Christianity prior to that had no interest or concern with what was happening in the Middle East per se. A little bit of the Crusades, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't seen as this sort of end times thing.
Right.
But I think Abbott, you're right. He knows that he needs to appeal to that evangelical base throughout Texas. But at the same time, there's this socialist left base that's also part of that managed dialectic. A lot of the Free Palestine stuff, a lot of the if you go back to the PLO, they have a long history of being infected with Marxist Soviet ideology. In fact, there's a great book and a series, if you don't have time to read the book. John le Carré, the famous British spy author, he wrote a book called Little Drummer Girl. They made it into a series on HBO or something like that. Anyway, it's like a 5-part series. It's absolutely excellent for demonstrating this point of this managed dialectic between this sort of like socialist Free Palestine movement versus like the what's considered right-wing conservative or the Likud type of view, you could say. And from the British intelligence perspective, he writes about it as like people being manipulated. It's a sort of a dialectic. The people involved in this end up basically leaving the scenario, if that makes. I don't want to spoil the movie for you, but I highly recommend it for an artistic portrayal of understanding like two sides of this.
Well, my concern is that these people are already functioning from a critical theory framework, and they believe that it's oppressive versus oppressed. They're standing up for the oppressed.
Yeah.
Now you bring in the stormtroopers and you crack down on them. What is it going to do? It's going
to we're justified. We're being attacked because we're actually doing the right thing here. You ask them about Ukraine though, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to promote that war. That war's great. We got to finance that one." The other one, we don't like that one based on political lines. Sorry, Clint, finish your point.
Yeah, well, I mean that's basically my point. But I went to the End the Damn Wars rally in January of last year, And I marched alongside some of these people, no doubt about it. I'm sure there's some of these people that are doing this too. And they were actually very opposed to the war. Now, again, they had I think, a wrong-headed worldview, and they were kind of in defense of Russia because of the USSR. And it's like, for me, it doesn't really matter. If you want to see the United States stop funding proxy wars, you're my ally in this moment. And at the end of the day, even if I don't agree with you on everything, I still believe that we have to have a right to speak and protest. And if we limit that, we are only going to radicalize our people further and ultimately lead ourselves towards violence, which is what I at least want to see.
So the argument on the right that's happening right now, because I want to steel man this, is that these people would celebrate and cheer when you get sent to the gulag for opposing the war in Ukraine. But again, we made that argument before, and let's just be honest, it's probably true. But it doesn't mean I have to be duplicitous on my virtues and my values and what I personally believe in when it comes to, of course, free speech in this country. Another point that I wanted to make here is that the right is playing with fire. We saw what happened before the last election cycle. We saw what happened with the BLM riots, and now with a strong kind of police response, with sensationalistic, crazy statements being made against these people, you are only emboldening them more. These protests are going to happen more the more you try to stop them. Allow people to have free speech. Allow people to peacefully assemble. Now, you can make an argument about private property or not, but in my opinion, if these people want to sit down at Columbia University and give Columbia the business, hey, who am I to judge and say that the state should intervene here? As, of course, Columbia created this mind virus. Let them deal with it. Let them occupy Columbia University. It might not be a popular opinion here or to the audience, but let them deal with it. Go ahead, Columbia. You created this mind virus. Here you go. Have at it. Good luck.
The faculty walked out in solidarity with these kids, so it's like the faculty is on board. So yeah, just let them all let the professors and the kids all sit in the quad and interlock arms and feel like they're soldiers for the truth. That's fine. I don't think we actually make progress by using batons on these people. I think it's totally wrongheaded. I really do.
Yeah. Another aspect here that I wanted to kind of discuss here is that there's another factor here. A lot of these students, some of them don't even know what they're protesting. A lot of them are kind of hopeless. A lot of them don't have a lot of economic opportunities. A lot of them are dealing with significant mental health issues. Yep. And there's a larger problem of radicalization and the potential of violence that could happen at any moment and any time, especially when you have all of these certain ingredients kind of coming together. If you look at how people are radicalized, they're usually radicalized because they're poor and they're not mating with the opposite sex. Mm-hmm. There's also a low IQ kind of correlation there. And when you look at those ingredients, there's a lot of that. The IQ of this country's going down. Parasocial relationships between men and women going down. Economic opportunities going down. Less and less available for the generations of this country moving forward. And now you add a radicalization problem that comes from the universities, that comes from TikTok, that comes from Facebook, and you have a very strong weaponized organization and group and force that at any moment, at any time, could turn into a full, all-out Chinese cultural revolution here inside of the United States that could pop off at any moment, at any time.
Yeah.
I think this threat is legitimate. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think all of these, I guarantee if you polled those people, notwithstanding legitimate reasons to protest perhaps, but if you polled those people, I bet you the majority would be socialists. They would identify as that. I was in academia not too long ago, maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Maybe one professor throughout multiple departments wasn't openly expressing Marxist socialist stuff openly. And that's intentional. That the system's pushed that for a long time. I left academia because it's like, if you're not going to be part of the socialist club, they don't want you there. And that requires submitting to all those dogmas of socialism. So I guarantee you that if you polled those people, they would identify explicitly as socialists. So they're creating this, like you said, bubbling up underclass that will immediately submit to the technocratic socialist order that they want to bring in the next few years.
And it's kind of terrifying when you look at the parallels of the Chinese Communist revolution that happened, especially with how they went after the landowners, they went after
intellectual class,
business owners, they went after the people in universities, they went after the lawyers, they went after some of the most prominent individuals. The blue collar working class of that country was absolutely not just ridiculed, not just in prison, but literally sent to prisons and jails and gulags that they never returned from ever again. There was a massive purge. Tens of millions of people passed away, died because of the actions from the state. And this is something that, of course, isn't taught to these children, isn't taught to these kids. And they are literally repeating history, according to my own personal opinion. Is that a hyperbolic statement, or is that a statement that is a legitimate concern for everyone?
I think that the cycle is turning again. Whether or not it's a repeat, a rhyming of the cycle, but we get to kind of change. It's a spiral. It's not a circle that repeats itself. It's a spiral that's moving. So it's like it looks a similar shape in a different area, different pattern. Like we do need a cultural revolution of some sort. I used to think of it as a revolution of the mind. Turns out that's what Chairman Mao called it as well. But we need a shift of consciousness in this world where we focus on God, or there's some. We can use our scientific tools to understand that we're connected in a way, but still have a decentralized sort of governance. Like local government is the way. You can't rely on some foreign commander to protect your kids when there's a knock at the door. So we've got to build a balance. Understanding our connected nature, but not with socialism. I love this decentralized autonomy.
Ian's little red book is about to come out.
Oh, geez, Ian Mao
It'll be red and purple.
Ian Mao Zedong Chrysler.
When I started my YouTube channel in
you
2006.
literally, when we were on Timcast a couple of years ago, you were literally talking about larger kind of Maoist kind of policies and programs that was driving me crazy. And I'm like, Ian, no.
Yeah, when I started making internet videos in 2006, I read this book called The Four Agreements. I was like, well, what would Jesus Christ do if he was alive today? He'd use the internet. And he'd use internet video to spread the word. So I started doing it to my best of my ability. And my tagline was a revolution of the mind. And I thought that's what we need. And then years later, I found out, well, that was what Mao had gone in thinking. And I saw myself becoming a cult leader. So I dipped out. And I was like, I need to build systems that people can use independent of me, like Minds, social networks, open source code, things that people can use. Like that's the revolution we need, not this like, I will lead you there kind of crap.
I just wanted to make a broader point, too, that it's not just struggle sessions from the left. I think what we've witnessed with, I guess Elon Musk is a good example. We're going to get into that later, but also Tucker Carlson from the right over the past few weeks. We talked about that on last night's show. Is like people are struggling him, like they're trying to get him in line because he is
talking about the interdimensional beings and creatures. I want to talk to you about that so much, Jay. We're going to talk about that probably in about 30 minutes from now.
You as an interdimensional being?
One that might have knowledge about those type of creatures and entities. That
I've had one bad trip, so I guess I can speak to that.
Oh, nice.
You're speaking Ian's love language now.
I've had one bad trip as well.
But Clint,
One's enough, right?
Yeah.
Clint, finish off your topic, and then Steph, let's read this super chat and Streamlabs next. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if you get out of alignment with dogma, and apparently dogma is that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were righteously obliterated, then you're going to be struggled, and you're going to try and have your audience diminished. And I think that this is it's not healthy. We need to have more debate, particularly when it comes to mass loss of life. And I think that that's all good and healthy. And any opposition to it, I perceive it to be kind of like a cult-like mentality that I really don't respect.
Steph, let's read some of the Streamlabs and Super Chats.
All right. Well, we got one from Baldhead Dim Fool saying, keep up the great work, guys. Love you, Ian. Don't let Dim Fool take over the conversation. You bring a different perspective from the other side. Stop eating seed oils, Luke. Hamburger and... in parentheses, Steph, let the guest talk more, please.
Yes, Steph. And shots fired against Beanie Man. We love the Beanie Man. Shouts out to the Beanie Man. We got another one here by Andrew Jacobs.
He says, Clint, debate Mark P on the best Dexter season.
Yeah, why don't you debate Mark P? I don't even know who Mark P is. I have no idea who that is.
I will be debating Mark Pellegrino, who I guess he played Lucifer in some TV show.
Oh, awesome. I saw he's looking to debate right now. With Dave Smith, he wanted to debate.
Yeah, Dave doesn't respect him enough to do it, so I got the task. I will be on Spaces with Josie on Friday, so if people want to check that out.
We got another My Stream Labs here. Steph, can you take it away?
We got one from the One Piece is Real saying, MTJ, I propose we don't spend taxpayer money on foreign wars. X traitor.
My question about that is, do you think that there are some wars that are righteous in that they will prevent larger wars?
That has always been the argument. We could get into a philosophical kind of debate and conversation about that, but that also has been used as a larger excuse in order to start them as well. So it all depends on the context and situation, but we'll get into that in a little bit, as I wanted to talk about more financial news, as it's pretty clear the prospects for the American youth aren't good, especially with all the taxes, regulations, and rules that they have to follow that their parents and generations before them never did. The generations before us had less taxes, less rules, less regulations, more economic ability to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. That young kids are told to do the same, as we're facing record amounts of theft, record amounts of government intervention in your life, in the private sector, that prevents them from being able to be free human beings. A lot of people are economically suffering, and more will, as Joe Biden today is proposing a historic capital gains tax hike. Joe Biden is pushing for a 44.6% capital gains tax, the steepest since 1922. Clint, you're a financial guru, expert dude. What's capital gains, and what kind of larger destructive effect will this have on the economy?
Yeah, capital gains is just when you make an investment in something, so you have your baseline, and then whatever it appreciates above that, when you sell it, you would have to pay almost half to the government. So it's confiscatory. It is ultimately really deleterious to the economy. But this is a very natural reaction to the fact that we are in the death spiral of empire in terms of finance. So I'm not at all surprised.
What happened last time they raised it in the 20s, like you were saying, Luke? The last time they raised the capital gains tax, what was the result?
Well, I mean, he said it was 1922, and we had the Great Depression less than a decade later. So,
and why are they doing it?
Oh, someone needs to pay for these foreign wars and conflicts and Medicare and healthcare
They're
and all this
insolvent.
other kind of government promises that they try to give you that amounts to absolute crap.
So I mean, they bring in $5 trillion a year, and they spend it 8 to 9. So they're way upside down. We are basically a credit card based country at this point. So it's very bad. There is no way out. My estimation is that it will not just be capital gains tax, but they will also go after estates. And I'm not talking about $100 million estates. I'm talking about $500,000 estates. They're going to try and seize everything. Mm-hmm. There's about $70 to $80 trillion worth of in net worth that the American people own. That is likely to be turned over through inheritance in the next 20 to 30 years. The government is going to try and come for that.
You think
money.
the government's going to try and take the citizens' property to pay back the Federal Reserve, the private bank?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then the people, you think the people?
You didn't realize that you're a debt slave, Ian?
Oh, I've realized it. I just want to lay it out there so everyone else does.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, whether or not they'll get away with it. Here's the reality: the wealthiest, the people with the $100 million estates, those are the people that actually have political allies that will probably find ways to circumvent these rules. It's everybody else that's in trouble. It's everybody else that's in the line of fire. But even with their well-laid plans, we're still talking about we're talking about hyperinflation, with them trying to take all of the wealth that we've accumulated despite all of their malfeasance throughout our lives, and then they want to take it at the end of our lives. That's the type of stuff that you would see revolutions over. So I hope they don't go that route, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I don't know what you're seeing on the financial end here, Jay, but it definitely doesn't look promising for the future of this country. It definitely doesn't look like a lot of children growing up will have the same kind of economic opportunities that we even had. And it definitely does seem with more intervention of the state, less opportunities arise, more poverty will, of course, increase from here, just like we saw in places like Venezuela.
Yeah, I remember going to an event in Montana a few years ago, and when you drive up that way, you'll see all the Indian reservations. And one thing you notice is that that's clearly like a strategy. I know you guys are libertarian, you probably heard of this, but that's the model for everyone else, is to get them on a kind of reservation, and that whole, being on the dole stuff, which is what they're going to promise everybody. I think more and more it's like a cloud and pivot, intentional, maybe destroy the existing economy, get rid of the middle class. Then you have like this elite, and then everyone else is a plebe or a serf. Biden basically printed more fiat money than anyone else. I mean, everybody's seeing this in inflation, right? So I'm not surprised about that. I remember hearing about the that tax. There's also some sort of side secret law that they're trying to push to, where they're wanting to go after every small business that if you don't report everything, they're going to say that you are not reporting, appropriately. So that, I think, is absolutely backing up what you're saying, to just basically seize the wealth of the assets of the nation.
Right,
So,
which is why the stock market is doing so well, despite the fact that this is all a house of cards, is that they crush competition, which means that these oligarchical or oligopolies is really what they are. There's just a handful of just mega corporations that control essentially every industry, and the startups have no fighting chance because the regulatory agencies are controlled by the government. The big corporations control the government, therefore small competitors can't possibly rise up and compete. It's like technocratic global communism.
what
Or fascism, whichever you want to call
what
it.
do you think? So I hear all the time, like when you get on Twitter, you see all the normie conservative people that are super annoying, and they're always just like, "We're run by a bunch of boobs in Washington. We got to throw." And I'm like, I think these people are cunning, psychopathic, technocrats. Like they're intentionally putting the stressors on the system to cause the problems.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like a bunch of idiots running everything.
Well, I think that there are idiots, obviously.
There's a layer of idiocy.
Yeah, but those are like the elected representatives.
Exactly.
It's like the real power players are the wealthiest people that have ever existed. Like if you think they're stupid, you're an idiot. These people are unbelievably brilliant and cunning, as you said.
And sometimes they have high intelligence with the low wisdom, like they're inherited money, and then so they don't know what they're doing. They're just doing what makes sense to make more of the thing without the actual wisdom of why am I doing this?
Right. Well,
and
it's high intelligence with zero morality too. That's like a
And
really
very
dangerous
and
concept.
very little EQ.
Yeah, exactly. The wisdom. It's sad to see that combination.
The
Sometimes, especially
emotional
people in
intelligence.
power, it's dangerous as hell. But Jay, you were saying part of the strategy is to put people on reservations like they did with the native population. And how would that? Is this part of the mega city plan?
That'd
of
be the freedom
Agenda
cities from
2030?
Trump, right?
The C what are they, C40 cities or the C20? I forget what it is.
Yeah.
But there's a whole website for the cities of the future that they have, where you're not going to have cars, you won't have meat.
15-minute cities, they call them, right?
Yeah, but there's an acronym of C something cities.
Yeah, I think it might be C40. That sounds right.
But yeah, they have a whole like who we are and what we want to do, and then if you go to the websites that try to debunk it, the Snopes or whatever, they're like, they're not doing this, and you go to the website where they say we're doing it in 10 years.
Right.
So they're saying, well, they're not doing it right now.
Yeah, it's the plan, though. I mean,
But it is the plan.
You've already seen it. They do have 15-minute cities. This is also not just a Trumpian plan. This is World Economic Forum. Like they've been talking about this for years.
I heard of that. That's Agenda 2030. It was 2021. They pushed it to Agenda 2030, where they want to build mega cities and then rewild the rest of the world. Like they don't want humans in the nature. They want to put them all in these compacted cities.
Well,
is that part of the?
That's part of it, but they also want to basically open up for the global south. They want to have immigration to alleviate poverty that's a product of imperialism. It's like it is Marxism, 201.
One-on-one.
Oh, so is it undermining the British Empire's conquest of the last 150 years? Is that what they're trying to do?
I think it's being orchestrated by the empires that destroyed the world. So I'm we go very deep on that one, though.
Yeah, I mean, we could go into that stuff in about 20 minutes, and then we'll get into the weeds of that, as, of course, the conversation should be fascinating in just a little bit. As, of course, just continuing on the topic of discussion here, if there was such a large capital gains tax, Elon Musk wouldn't have been able to buy Twitter, wouldn't able to buy social media, one of the few platforms that is still somewhat allowing some kind of free speech, but is directly under attack, as an Australian senator literally came out and said Elon Musk should be in jail and the key should be thrown out. This after the Australian government, along with the New Zealand government, literally is going after free speech, literally is going to social media platforms and saying, you're going to cut these people off. They're not going to be able to say whatever they want. They won't have a voice in our society. And all the social media companies are saying, yep, sure, no problem, except for a few. One of them we can't mention here. Another one is, of course, Twitter. Here's the clip of this Australian senator talking about Elon Musk, who she believes should be in jail right now.
Tech billionaire.
So when it comes to the tech billionaire, like I've already said, I think he's a social media knob with no social conscience. He has absolutely no social conscience. Someone like that should be in jail and the key be thrown away. That bloke should not have a right to be out there on his own ideology platform.
What an insecure, pathetic, bureaucratic Becky. You weak-minded, dim fool. It's seeing these things just highlight. You could see the anger in her face. You could see the frustration. You allow people to talk to each other? The rabble are able to discuss ideas together? How dare you? This is, again, aggravating because this is the larger ideology of technocratic Orwellian control freaks that want to control every aspect of your life. The clip continues.
And creating hatred, showing all this stuff out there to our kids and doing all the rest. I'm very interested to watch what the US is going to do with TikTok and how far that they can do. We're trying to get rid of that platform as well. So I think we're all watching on the United States at the moment to see what they're doing. But seriously, if we can move, and if that means in the next sitting that we can shut him down from doing this, because this is
happy to kick them out?
disgraceful.
You kick the platform out?
I don't give a stuff about the platform. I'm happy to go off the platform today, to be honest with you. I already have a list of all you journalists. I don't even know why we're on the platform. But I say this to everybody else. I'll be switching off X today. I'll be doing that before I get to the airport this afternoon. And I suggest that the other 227 members of parliament do the same thing.
What a weak little ninny. And of course, the Prime Minister of Australia also came out and said that memes of him on social media should not be allowed and they should be censored as well. These people have no shame. These people are absolutely insecure. Elon Musk is responding by saying the Australian people want the truth. Twitter is the only one standing up for their rights. And it's not just them. It's another platform that we can't even mention here on this platform. He says on his social media account, quote, "Our concern is that if any country is allowed to censor content for all countries, which is what the Australian e-safety commissioner is demanding, then what is to stop any country from controlling the entire internet?" That's the battle here. That's what's at stake here, and it's big stakes.
This is an important last sentence, though. It says, "We have already censored the content in question for Australia pending legal appeal, and it is stored only on servers in the USA." So this lady is calling for him to be jailed, despite the fact he has already done their bidding. He has censored this video for the people of Australia. That's not enough. They want it taken down. They want the platform taken down. I got into it with Tim last time I was on IRL, and he was very adamant that the TikTok ban should fly. I would love to hear his maybe he'll respond to it on the show tonight, but I would love to hear his take on what this lady says, because she also said we're all looking at America and we're going to see how far they're willing to take it with the TikTok ban. These are totalitarian instincts. These are not about fighting the CCP. It's about becoming the CCP, and I hope people are starting to see that.
Yeah. TikTok ban was insane, dude. They did that all wrong. You should not give the government the power to ban social networks. You got to make them free their software code. You want to run a foreign social network in our nation? Give us the code so we can make sure you're not truly manipulating us.
Yeah.
Or if you are, we want to know how you're manipulating us.
Yeah.
And then TikTok, ByteDance would have shut it down. We wouldn't have had to do this.
Well,
Jay, I don't know if you have any strong opinions on TikTok or Elon Musk here, but it definitely does seem like this is one of the most important fights for the internet's future happening right now, and it looks like they're doing everything they can in order to stop Elon.
Yeah, I think that he's to some degree a problem for the technocratic structure because he's in a sense coming from that world. I'm not saying he's totally a part of that, but I'm saying that I think everybody in that billionaire class is expected to go along with that. So any deviations kind of make you then a problem, even if you're not fully as freedom-oriented as I might like him to be. At least he's moving in the right direction. So I hope for the best in that scenario. I think Alex has had a lot of, sway in that regard. So hopefully that goes in the right direction. However, the thing that makes me laugh about what you play was just the boomer attitude of like being totally unfamiliar with how the internet works. Like as if you request to please stop putting memes up that are hurting my feelings. That's like the best way for the internet to then go crazy with memes. But
it's like no one even knew who Dan Andrews was this morning, and now there's infinite memes in my
timeline. King of memes.
Here's another meme of him right now.
But this bloke thinks he's above the Australian law, that he's above common decency. And I tell you what, I say to Elon Musk that he is so out of touch.
Just to clarify for YouTube terms of service, that was doctored media. That was a filter, probably from I don't know what app, but I just want to be very clear. He did not actually have that makeup on. In case anyone was actually tricked by it.
We got to have a disclaimer now so YouTube doesn't go after us for that. But the responses here are pretty hilarious as well to all of this. As now there's more memes, and I want to share even more of them personally. So Clint, go ahead.
Oh no, Ian.
Sorry, Ian.
Yeah, I was going to say something about, first about British sensibility and why we even started this country in the first place, because it's annoying as hell. Like, yo, dudes have guns and they kill deer and they eat raw meat. Like, get over yourself, bro. If they're going to paint your face in blood on the cave wall, because that's what we do as cavemen. That's how we had fun. It's not personal. So with their own blood or whatever. What Elon should do is federate this system now. He needs to get it out of his hands and open it up, because they're going to try and knock out Twitter. And now that with this TikTok ban, they have the ability to, well, it looks like they got the legislative ability to do it. So he needs to federate the system. He needs to open source and free the software code to AGPL3 so that there can be lots of Twitters all over the place. And if they want to shut down the main one, the other one's going to be just fine. And all the data is still going to be available.
Can he do that while still owning it and profiting from it?
Well, he can own a bunch of different copies of it, basically.
Well, because my concern is that, like, despite Elon's lofty language about defending free speech and everything, this guy is trying to turn X into the everything app. He's trying to make it your bank and everything else. He wants to get extraordinarily wealthy and powerful from it.
Well, the financial stuff that he's working on right now that we see Twitter announce, he's working on not only a TV app, but for a way for people to actually tip for every post someone makes through their own official bank account that would be their Twitter bank account.
Exactly.
And with the levels of censorship that's kind of happening, I would want a kind of Twitter bank account myself, to be quite honest with you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean that's my point though, is that like he's trying to make a profit from it, and look, I don't begrudge that. I'm a capitalist at the end of the day, and that's fine. But my concern is, like, if we're going to trust so much of our lives to Elon, and he is basically public enemy number one, and you have people calling for him to be jailed. Will he bend the knee? And if he bends the knee once he has all of that data, what does that portend for the people? It's not good. So it makes me nervous. But also, like, your idea of decentralizing, can he still monetize and make all the revenue that he expects to make? And if he can, then I agree with you. If he can't, then he's not going to do it.
He can still sell ads on the network, and Twitter would still be the biggest node on the Twitterverse or whatever.
Okay.
And that, but I think the thing that I keep looking, I see common sense. If he keeps playing this game of fiat and he really wants that swift payment money, they're going to shut him down. You can't, if you really want to win the bad guy's game, the bad guy's going to let you get really close and then stomp you out, because he wants you to play the game to make his game popular.
Right.
That's where I feel like he's got to diversify into crypto. He has to use tens of thousands of different cryptos on blockchains that are underground, that are out in space, literally orbital databases. And those can even be shot down. Yeah, he's got the satellites. Now he needs like Martian databases. He needs to decentralize this stuff if he wants it to prolong.
Well, I think he certainly knows the threats that he's under. So let's just hope that he's actually thinking ahead and is actually going that route. And more than anything, let's hope that he's the real deal and that he actually does care about free speech and all these other things.
I think, from what I can tell, he's very concerned about losing revenue. But the thing is, when you open up the system to a bunch of different nodes of the system, you will see a dip in the revenue, and then the entire system will fortify, and the entire thing will start to rise together. So there will be a loss in Twitter's revenue. That's just part of the problem.
Well,
but if you hold on tight, it's going to all go away.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, I think you might be right. This is way outside of my expertise, but yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm sure he's thinking about it.
I hope so, man. Let's have him on the show ASAP.
Elon,
anyone that has a contact, let's do
come
this
back.
immediately.
Come on the show anytime. We'd love to have you. Love to have a conversation.
Hey, he responds to Josie the Redhead Libertarian like 4 times a week. She's basically best friends with him. Josie's friends with us. It's gonna happen at some point.
Yeah,
Elon, just come on in.
Twitter space, maybe X space, about decentralizing Twitter. That'd be a good one.
Is that, and then forgive my ignorance, is that part of what inspired Minds was the fact that the internet was kind of fairly free, and then when social media came to be, it got more and more centralized, and then is that kind of partly what?
In the beginning, it was less about centralization, more about proprietary software code. And I didn't even, first Bill was like, want to start a new social network with me, and I was like, I don't know why. We already have Facebook and YouTube. It sounds redundant, but I need money. So okay, so I went and worked, and then they're like, here's what free software is. If you have an open source code software, a lot of open source, if Clint has an open source social network, I can take that code this basic open source software and change it and make it better and make it private. And then I screw him over. But if the software code is free software, it's like an upgraded version of open source. It means AGPL3, after General Public License version 3. Richard Stallman is the guy that runs the Free Software Foundation. He's like the Yoda of free software. If I take his AGPL3 code, his free software, and I change it, all my changes have to remain free and open. So we're building on top of each other. So I learned that working there. And then as we were there, we're like, we got to decentralize this as well. It's too vulnerable on Amazon web servers. Let's build a mesh network. Let's find out a way to do it where all of our devices are hosting it at once, so that if 98% of the devices go down, the 2% that remain will still host the network.
Yeah. Well, another person facing a lot of censorship from many governments all around the world is, of course, Chris Pavlovsky, a person who, of course, we interviewed many times, as he's talking about how the censorship war on hosting providers is next. And it definitely does seem like many states, many governments, many bureaucratic ninny control freaks are doing everything in their power in order to prevent you guys from being able to speak with each other. We have finally done an hour of this show, which means the next hour is going to be a lot freer on another platform that Chris Pavlovsky is the CEO of. The platform we can't even mention here on this particular broadcast, since now YouTube has put something in their algorithm where literally if you mention it, your engagement is just absolutely cut off. So you'll
Find us over on Bumblebee.
I was going to say
No.
Bumble.
Oh, I used to
Like,
use
so
Bumble.
we can be
Yeah.
dating apps.
Yeah,
I met a
it-
girl on that Bumble once.
You shouldn't be so conceited. We should all be more humble. We'll see you over on Humble.
Humble
a great name.
Bumble / We Are Change is where you find
Stumble
us.
on over to
Bumble, fumble. We Are Change. And we will continue the conversation there. Just wanted to remind everyone, again, we're doing a nature hike for members of LukeUnfiltered.com this Sunday, 1 p.m. local time in Austin, Texas. Come touch grass with us. Come meet like-minded individuals. Come have some positive effects on your mental and physical health. This is something that we are prioritizing. This is the culture that we're trying to build here. Be a part of it. Sign up to LukeUnfiltered.com. Jay, before we move over to Bumble, Humble, you know what we're trying to say here without saying it. Where can people find you? We put your YouTube channel in the description, but more directly, where can people find out more information about you?
Bumble, Tinder, Grindr. That's a good one. You can find me on...
I knew I had seen you somewhere.
Clint saw you on Grindr.
Yeah. You can find me on jaysanalysis.com is my website. Have a member section there going back about 10 years of archived lectures. You can get my books there, signed copies of the website, as well as my wife's books. You can find me every Friday, the 4th hour of Lord Voldemort. You can probably figure out who that is. And find me on Rockfin. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, don't let the cookie crumble, guys. Don't fumble. Go to, you know where. All right, Ian?
I'm Ian Crossland, and I'll tell you more about that as we stumble on over to the humblest. Check me out at Ian Crossland. That's where you'll find all my stuff, and I'll see you there.
Bryant Gumbel.
Yeah. He's a huge fan.
He's definitely not on the free speech platform that we're going to. Clint?
At Liberty Lockpod. You should follow me there. If you subscribe to support my work, I'll follow you back. Liberty Lockdown's the show. Also, I will be on Tower Gang at 9:15 tonight. Absolutely do not tune in. It is the worst thing you will ever see in your entire life. That's it. Love you guys. See you soon.
This is Steph We Are Change, pushing the buttons. You can find me at Steph We Are Change on Instagram or Steph WRC on X.
And another reminder, if you are a member of Luke Unfiltered